Hey, I'm on my way to make you my queen. The road stretched ahead of me, but my mind was already far beyond it, with her. The decision wasn't sudden, it had been building quietly, like a song playing in the background of my life, until I could no longer ignore the melody. Every call, every message, every late-night conversation had pulled me closer. Her laughter still echoed in my ears, and the way she spoke about her dreams made me want to be part of every single one of them. I wasn't just traveling to see her. I was traveling with purpose. I wanted her to know she wasn't just another chapter in my story. She was the book. I kept thinking about the little details. The way she listens like every word matters. The way she encourages me when I doubt myself. The way she makes even the simplest days feel like they belong in a memory album. She wasn't just someone I cared about. She was someone I wanted to protect, to lift up, to stand beside no matter what. As the miles passed, I pictured the moment I'd finally stand in front of her. I imagined looking into her eyes and letting her see everything I'd been carrying in my heart. I didn't want her to wonder about my intentions. I didn't want her to question her worth. I wanted her to know, without a doubt, that in my world, she would be my queen. And so, with every turn of the wheel, I moved closer to that truth, closer to her, closer to the life I wanted us to build together. The closer I got to her city, the more everything around me started to feel different. The air seemed warmer, the colors seemed brighter, and even the quiet moments felt charged with something special. I kept thinking about all the times she'd told me about her favorite places here. The street where the flowers bloom in spring, the cafe where she sits with a book, the park where she goes when she needs peace. I wanted to see them all, not just as places on a map, but as parts of her world I could step into. Every mile marker I passed made my heart beat a little faster. It wasn't nerves. It was that rush you feel when you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be heading. I'd gone over what I would say to her 100 times. Sometimes it was simple. I'm here for you. Other times it was a long, messy speech about how she changed my life without even trying. But in the end, I knew that when I saw her, the words would come from the heart, not from a script. There was something powerful about this moment. It wasn't just about seeing her, it was about showing her through my actions that she mattered enough for me to cross any distance. I thought about the look on her face when she would open the door and see me standing there. Would she smile right away? Would she be shocked? Would she feel the same wave of emotions that had been carrying me here? One thing was certain, I wasn't just arriving as a visitor. I was arriving with a promise. A promise that, if she let me, I'd make sure she never doubted how much she means to me. And somewhere in my chest, that quiet truth repeated itself over and over. I'm here to make her my queen. When I finally reached her street, it felt like the world had slowed down. The noise of the city faded into the background, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I stopped for a moment, a few houses away from hers, just to take it in. This was the place where she laughed, where she dreamed, where she lived, her everyday life. And soon I'd be standing at her door, stepping into her space, and hopefully into her heart in a way that could never be undone. Walking those last few steps felt like the longest journey of all. Every part of me wanted to rush, but I didn't want to look desperate, even though I probably was. The closer I got, the more I remembered every late-night conversation, every smile through the screen. Every time her voice had been the only thing that made the day better. When I reached her door, I just stood there with my hand half raised to knock. For a second, I thought about turning away, not because I didn't want to see her, but because I wanted to make sure this moment stayed perfect. But then I realized, moments don't stay perfect by waiting. they become perfect by happening. So I knocked. Those few seconds felt like hours. I could hear soft footsteps approaching from inside, and my heart was pounding so loud. I was sure she could hear it through the door. And then it opened. She stood there, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Her eyes widened in surprise, and a slow, stunned smile began to spread across her face. She looked at me like she couldn't believe I was real, and I knew right then. Every mile, every moment, every second of waiting had been worth it. I didn't say hi or give a long speech. I just stepped forward, looked straight into her eyes, and whispered the only thing that mattered. I told you I'd come for you. The moment I stepped inside, it felt like I had crossed into a different world. Her home wasn't fancy or grand, but it carried something richer than gold, the warmth of her. Every corner had traces of her life, a scarf draped carelessly over a chair, a mug with half-finished tea, pictures that told quiet stories of moments she'd treasured. She closed the door softly behind me, as if sealing the outside world away. For a moment we just stood there, looking at each other without a word. I could see in her eyes the flood of emotions she was trying to hold back. Relief, joy, maybe even disbelief. I felt it too, that strange mix of wanting to rush into her arms and wanting to freeze time. So this moment could last forever. When she finally stepped closer, it was slow, like she was still making sure this was real. Her hand reached out, brushing against mine, and that simple touch sent a wave of heat straight to my chest. It was the kind of touch that said more than 1,000 words, that I was welcome, that I was wanted, that I belonged. We moved to the living room, but instead of sitting apart, we ended up close enough that our knees brushed with every small movement. She poured me tea, but her eyes kept drifting to my face, like she was memorizing every detail. And I did the same, noticing the tiny lines around her eyes from all the times she had smiled, the way her hair fell loosely, the way she leaned toward me without even realizing it. The conversation flowed easily, like we'd been in the same room 1,000 times before. We talked about my journey here, about the little things that had happened in her week, and about our plans for the rest of the day. But underneath all those words there was an unspoken truth, that something between us had shifted. At one point she laughed at something I said, and without thinking I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead she laced her fingers with mine, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a visit. This was the beginning of a life we'd been building in pieces, from messages, calls, and daydreams, now stitched together in the same space. I wanted to tell her everything. I'd been holding back, but before I could speak, she squeezed my hand gently and said, "I still can't believe you're here." And all I could reply was, "Get used to it, because I'm not leaving without you." After that little exchange, we both just sat there for a moment, holding hands like we'd been doing it for years. Her thumb traced slow circles over my skin, and I could feel my heartbeat syncing with hers. It was quiet, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was the kind that wraps around you, making you feel safe. She stood up suddenly and said, "Come with me, I want to show you something." I followed her down the small hallway, past framed photos and tiny pieces of her life hanging on the walls. We stopped at a door near the end. She hesitated before opening it, and when she finally did, I saw a room I didn't expect. It wasn't decorated yet, just a few boxes stacked in the corner, a fresh coat of paint on the walls, and a large empty space in the middle. She turned to me and said softly, "I've been saving this room for when you come." I didn't know what to say. The fact that she had kept this space ready waiting for me hit me harder than I could have imagined. It wasn't just a room. It was a promise, a sign that she'd been building a future with me in her heart, long before I even got here. I stepped inside, feeling the weight of the moment. Her voice was a little shaky when she added, "I thought maybe it could be ours. A place for us." And right there I realized something. This wasn't just about visiting her. This was about starting a life together. I turned to her and without a second thought pulled her close. She rested her head against my chest, and I could feel her breathing slowly, like she'd been holding this moment in for too long. We stood there for what felt like forever, and I whispered, "This is perfect. But it's missing one thing." She tilted her head to look at me, her eyes curious. I smiled and said, "You in it every day." She laughed quietly, but I could see the emotion in her eyes. It was the kind of laugh you only hear when someone feels truly seen and truly loved. That night, we ended up sitting in that empty room on the floor, talking about where the bed would go, what color curtains she liked, and how the sunlight might look coming through the window in the morning. It didn't matter that the room was bare. We could already see it full of life, and as the hours passed, I knew without a doubt I hadn't just come here to visit. I had come here to stay. The next morning I woke up to the smell of coffee drifting in from the kitchen. She was already moving around, her hair still a little messy, wearing that oversized sweater. I'd seen her in the night before. She looked so natural, like she belonged in this space, like she was the space. She smiled when she saw me and handed me a cup. "We have a lot to do today," she said.